For anyone who's ever dreamed of piloting a starfighter just like they do in the Star Wars movies, this is about as close as you can get.
Lucky One, we're approaching a fork in the canyon.
It's a new kind of interactive computer video game designed for CD-ROM, and it makes you feel like you are a part of the action. It's just one of the games that was created here at this nondescript office building in Marin County, where George Lucas has assembled a staff of animators, programmers, and artists. They're putting the same kind of creativity into making interactive video games that you see in Lucas's films.
Hello, I'm Brian, and welcome back to Drink the Video Games. With the Star Wars license under its control, and CD-ROM drives becoming widely available, this LucasArts game pushed the limits of technology and asked big questions about what the world of Star Wars storytelling could be going forward. Releasing in 1993 on CD-ROM, this game would introduce us to new characters, give players the opportunity to take on the Empire as Rookie One, and its sequel would bring live-action Star Wars back into the world. Today we are talking about Rebel Assault.
Rookie One, welcome to Collidor. This is Commander Rumor Lane. I'll be leading you through the last phase of your flight training. Any questions?
No, ma'am.
Good, you impressed Commander Farrell. That's not easy. Me, I'm a little more forgiving, but the course ahead isn't. So follow me closely, and may the Force be with you.
With the deal finalized between Lucasfilm Games and JVC that finally allowed George Lucas's computer division to begin creating their own Star Wars video games, it wouldn't take long for the software company to begin testing the limits of exactly what Star Wars games could be. So here's how the deal worked according to Rogue Leaders by Rob Smith. JVC would give a $1 million advance to Lucasfilm Games to help them create a Star Wars game, then JVC would publish it, and everyone would win. The deal was for 6 games, so we'd get Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back for the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1991, and Super Star Wars, Super Empire Strikes Back, and Super Return of the Jedi in 1992, 1993, and 1994. But when the movie tie-in games made the jump from the Nintendo to the new Super Nintendo, the decision was made to skip making Return of the Jedi for the original NES, and that left the 6th and final game up in the air, and with new technologies come new possibilities. So with the Super Star Wars series covering the film franchise over on the Super Nintendo, and X-Wing on the horizon from veteran flight sim designer Lawrence Holland, Lucasfilm Games, now LucasArts, has the opportunity to take a look at how to continue telling new Star Wars stories. And there was a new technology hitting the home PC market, the CD-ROM drive. The CD-ROM had a lot of potential. CD quality music, highly rendered graphics, full motion video, plus massive amounts of storage. And all that was on display at the winter of 1992 Consumer Electronics Show, a show that was attended by a group of LucasArts employees, and most importantly to our story, Vince Lee, a relatively new face at LucasArts, was part of that group. Lee had come to the company the previous year as a programmer and had mostly been working on helping with ports of the LucasArts adventure games when he would get the opportunity to take lead on a brand new project, on a brand new format, for the biggest entertainment franchise in the world. No big deal, right?
Rebel Assault is a 15-level action arcade game. It takes up about 400 megs of CD-ROM, and it's shipped only on CD-ROM, currently for the PC and soon for the SEGA CD and the Macintosh. The product came about some time ago when we started to think about how we were going to take advantage of what CD-ROM gave us the opportunity to do, which was to build much more of a story and much more in-depth characters into our games. So what we ended up doing was going through and taking film clips out of the Star Wars movies, as well as filming some original footage, and layering that around some very high-quality 3D animation to create a fully interactive game that has the context of video to propel it along and give more life and depth to the story.
According to Rebel Assault, the official insider's guide by Joe Hutsko, the idea of creating their first CD-ROM game and having that be a Star Wars game was made about 6 months before Vince Lee was brought in to lead the project. Jack Sorensen, the director of business operations at LucasArts, states that the technology was so new, no one knew how to use it or what it could do. So new, in fact, that during the creation of Rebel Assault, LucasArts didn't even have their own CD burner that could manufacture CDs, so all the programming had to be done onto hard drives that were then sent out to get a copy of a CD made for testing. Not only that, but there weren't any design tools for it, so whoever was going to be in charge of this project needed to understand the development, game design, and the technology, and Vince Lee seemed to be the best suited for taking on this challenge, and what a challenge it would be. Vince knew that CD-ROMs had the capability of being a powerful gaming format, but he wasn't given much guidance from his bosses. Basically, make it Star Wars, but not too much like the upcoming space combat game X-Wing. So it was really up to him to decide what to do, and to try to find the answer to the question, what is the benefit of making a CD-ROM based game? Using some math skills I could only dream of, he breaks it down in the Insider's Guide. But to save you from hearing all the frame rates and kilobytes he breaks down, basically, a CD-ROM can hold roughly 425 floppy disks worth of data, and he pinpointed exactly how much of that data your home computer could process in 1 second, about 150K worth of data, which he figured could make for a smooth gaming experience. Armed with the knowledge that it could be done, now he just needed to make the game. So a trial of the game gets put together, and while it wasn't much to look at, a pretty low-resolution canyon with a little hand-drawn X-Wing flying through, it did sort of serve as a proof of concept. The second attempt would improve the graphics and become the building blocks for the Beggar's Canyon mission, the first level of the game. So Vince Lee knew that his game would work, but he wasn't so sure about the single-speed CD-ROM drives at the time. It's important to remember that in the early 90s, a CD-ROM likely held almost as much or more data than your computer's hard drive, so the game is going to have to be played directly from the disk, which is a slow process. So Vince Lee finds a solution. He designs a compression program that will take all the graphics for the game and smush them into little blocks that the computer can easily read. He names his compression system Smush, because that's exactly what it did. And now that those hurdles have been cleared, the game officially goes into development, with Vince Lee taking on the titles of project leader, programmer, and designer. The targeted release is winter of 1993, so now the real work begins, and the first thing to sort out is the art department. With development underway, Colette Michaud, who you can spot in the game, she's the inspiration for Commander Rue Merlin. Colette serves as the art director for the game, and is tasked with assigning the artist to create the world of Rebel Assault, which wasn't an easy thing to do, as there was very little 3D artwork being created by LucasArts at the time. According to the official Insider's Guide, it would take about 6 months to assemble artists that were capable of doing the 3D graphical work required for the game, with Ron Lucier being assigned as the lead 3D artist. During the hiring window, the storyline for the game gets laid out. Vince Lee knew that they would be using video assets from the films, so decided to run his game sort of parallel to the movies. It starts on Tatooine, and it ends at the Death Star. But the in-between bits needed to be filled in. What that meant for the team was a lot of watching Star Wars to find little threads they could explore in the game, as well as identifying what footage from the films would work for their story. It also meant lots of trips to the Lucasfilm archives to get the vehicle models just right. There were no 3D models of the ships yet at LucasArts, so Ron Lucier would have to create them all by hand, but the final product was all the better for his work, and with the ships created, now all they needed to do was create the levels for the game. According to Colette Michaud, each level would take about 1.5 to 2 months to complete. Vince Lee initially wanted 20 shorter levels, but eventually settled on the 15 slightly longer levels we get in the final game. And in between each, we get a pretty great cutscene to lead us into and out of the action. The cutscenes were made up from footage of the film that get digitally altered by the lead art technician Aaron Mizalski, or were created as 3D models, with LucasArts employees standing in for the Rebel Assault characters. Bill Tiller and Leonard Roble would lend their facial movements to the animators to create the 2D character models you see in the game, and those characters would come to life with the faces of several other LucasArts employees. In addition to Colette Michaud, who we mentioned, we also get to see the Star Wars glow-up for Wayne Klein, Jack Sorensen, Sean Turner, John Knowles, and Peter Chan. With the levels completed, the game goes through a series of back and forths with compressing the level, adding artwork, compressing it again, adding more artwork, and on. But time is of the essence, and by this time, the scheduled launch is about 6 months out, and there is no dialogue recorded, no sound effects, no implementation of John Williams' score, no testing, no marketing. What the team had done so far was impressive, but there started to be a real question if LucasArts would fail to deliver its first CD-ROM game on time. So it seems like there's a lot of work yet to be done to get Rookie One's adventure out into the world, and we're going to need a boost to get this across the finish line. Luckily, Michaela from Drink the Movies has a reservation for us at Oga's Cantina, so we can refuel, recharge, and refresh with a jet juice. Well, hello, Michaela. Thank you so much for joining me here at Oga's Cantina. How are you doing today? Welcome back to Drink the Video Games.
I'm doing great, Brian. Thanks so much for having me as always. Happy to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, normally I ask you if you've heard of the game that I'm playing this this month, and this month it is Star Wars Rebel Assault. I'm not even going to ask because I know that you've never played it, but I know for a fact that you have been to Oga's Cantina and have had one of our cocktails straight from the source.
I sure have. We've had quite a few of cocktails at Olga's Cantina. If you've never been to the Galaxy's Edge in either Disneyland or Disney World, I highly recommend it. And if you're an adult who has no problems with their knees or ankles and you don't mind standing at a bar, I really recommend going to Olga's at least once. It is a interesting experience. The ambiance is amazing. The drinks are really fun. They're very Star Wars themed. It's a little cramped inside. And if you have kids, they don't really serve food. So there's definitely some dynamics that you need to overcome. But if you're up for it, it's definitely worth it. And the drink we have today is from Olga's, and it's our version of the Olga's version.
That's right. Yeah, we were mixing up a jet juice today, and I thought that would be good. So in Rebel Assault, Michaela, the game that I'm covering, there's Rebel Assault and Rebel Assault 2. They came out in 1993 and 1995, and it's notable because this was one of the very first CD-ROM based games that really propelled people to start getting CD-ROM drives into their computer. It came out the same year as The Seventh Guest, which I've talked about before, and it came out the same year as Myst, which you probably have heard of. That one. So it came out that same year, and it was kind of a big deal, right, as game makers were trying to figure out if they could make games on this new CD-ROM technology, and certainly that is what happened here in Star Wars Rebel Assault. And in Star Wars Rebel Assault 2, it's pretty neat because they actually filmed all the cutscenes for the game, so it's new live action Star Wars acting in 1995, so literally 12 years after Return of the Jedi. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool stuff right there, and it's one of my favorite games of all time. I got it, I think, in 1996 in a compilation pack. I played the heck out of these games, and I thought a jet juice would be fitting because in the game you're flying around basically in every Star Wars ship imaginable in the game. So I thought a jet juice would be good. It would get us amped up and help Rookie One, the character that you're being in the game, make it through to the final mission, because the game gets a little tricky for sure. So if you wouldn't mind, Michaela, could you grab some ingredients for us, and let's get one of these jet juices put together. Now, we're going to caveat this. This is kind of like a cheat recipe that we found. Oga is very secretive with the cocktail recipes there. Oga will give you the ingredients, and we're going to talk about those here too. But the amounts of those ingredients is anyone's guess. So let's talk about what we made that we found online, and then let's talk about the one that you get at Oga's.
Sure. So we took 1.5 ounces of bourbon, 1/2 ounce of ancho chili liqueur, 1/2 ounce of an acai liqueur, 1/2 ounce of white grape juice, 1/2 ounce of fresh squeezed lemon juice. And what we did was we put that together in a rocks glass over a big ice cube, or you could use a shaker and pour it neat. I think that's what they do at Olga's, is you get it as a neat drink, if I remember correctly.
I believe so, yeah.
And then you're gonna sip this. You're gonna not chug it. It is a sipping drink, I will say. That ancho chili liqueur, woo! It packs a little bit of a punch there. I love it.
Yeah, the ancho chili liqueur is a pretty amazing ingredient. And ancho chili is delicious because it is spicy, certainly, but an ancho chili has this almost roasted, earthy quality to it. It's really good, and you definitely don't want to chug this down, because that's gonna do bad things to your voice and things like that. So definitely want to sip and enjoy this. And I do believe they serve it straight up, as it were, at Oga's there. So I'm guessing they probably shake theirs, or they might even have those pre-made, diluted a little bit with some water. I'm not 100% sure how they're serving theirs, but that was the recipe we found, and it's pretty good. It's a nice little bourbon drink. It's got some heat there from the ancho. It's got a little bit of sweetness from the white grape juice and the acai. It was pretty good. It was pretty good. I do have to say, we both looked at some very well-stocked liquor stores around us, and we were having trouble finding some acai liqueur. So your mileage may vary there, and the mileage may have varied at Disney, because on the menu now, according to the ingredients listed on Oga's Cantina, instead of using the acai liqueur, which I believe is how we had it when we had it, they're now using pomegranate liqueur. So I don't know if that was a supply and demand sort of a thing. I don't know if it was a taste sort of a thing, but finding pomegranate liqueur would certainly be easier. So go ahead and swap that out. What do you think? Any highlights on the taste, or do you remember having this at Oga's in our couple of trips down there?
Yeah, I do remember having it. I think it tasted pretty similar to how we experienced it. So acai and pomegranate are both kind of berries. They've got this kind of unctuousness, and they're very similar in kind of the sweetness level, I feel like. So I don't think that you're going to experience that big of a difference. Pomegranate liqueur is much easier to find because I have some of that. So what I think I need to do actually is like an actual taste test between the two of them and see if I can taste the difference. I really doubt it's going to make that big of a difference from a flavor perspective, but this was really good. I really liked it. It's very like a mature beverage versus like what you could expect to see, which I thought, there were some that, you would think that there would be some sugar bomb kind of drinks out there that would just be syrupy with a little bit of alcohol in it. But I was really pleasantly surprised in general at Olga's with their selections of drinks, because they all seemed really kind of inspired. And this was the same. So
absolutely. So that is the Jet Juice. Go ahead and mix one up. That's going to help you pilot around the galaxy and help Rookie One on their mission. So thank you so much for joining me, Michaela. I definitely appreciate it. Go check out Rebel Assault, or you can watch me play Rebel Assault 2 on the YouTube channel later this month. But for now, let's get back to the game.
The next big Star Wars project is Rebel Assault, which Lucasarts are developing for PC CD-ROM and Mega CD. It's an intense arcade action game which has been rendered entirely using 3D graphics. You can fly for the Rebel Alliance in X-Wings, A-Wings, and even snow speeders. This meteor storm is one of the playable sections of the game, and the cutscenes, which link the 15 levels, are visually stunning.
As the levels get completed, they immediately go into testing, both for bugs and gameplay, but also for hardware. The PC landscape was changing basically daily in the early 90s, so hardware testing was a daunting task for the team. Sound cards, CD-ROM drives, joystick, and every combination of those needed to be checked, and the gameplay fine-tuned. The music, which was being taken directly from the John Williams Star Wars score, had to be converted and enhanced to meet the sound capabilities of those sound cards. Clint Bajakian was in charge of processing the music, but Michael Land and Peter McConnell were also along to offer some help in getting the music formatted and integrated into the new CD-ROM format. But music wasn't the only sound the team needed for the game. Luckily, Star Wars sounds were already easily available to the team over at Skywalker Sound, and voice producer and director Tamlin Barra, who had begun doing voiceover direction for 1992's Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, comes in to get the cast of Rebels and Imperials voiced for the game. With the game nearing its completion, and that December target looming larger than the Death Star, it was time to unveil what Vince Lee and team had been working on. Of course, this was Star Wars, so even in 1993, there wasn't much the press didn't know about, but they all assumed it was going to be the CD-based version of X-Wing. The name Rebel Assault gets chosen, the brightly colored packaging gets approved, and Casey Donahue Ackley comes in as associate producer to keep things on track while Vince Lee finished making his game. She would also be responsible for giving the world its first look at the game in October of 1993 at the Mill Valley Film Festival.
Star Wars. Rebel Assault for Sega CD packs all the action and intrigue you expect from a JVC Star Wars game, plus cinematic sequences from the movies as well as original footage. A dozen missions call for your cunning, your wit, and your quick response time. Feel the Force as you learn to pilot 4 completely different spacecraft in the name of the Rebel Alliance. Digitized speech from the movies.
Your report, Commander.
We have them, Lord Vader. Within moments, our troops will board their ship. We'll then have the stolen plans back in our possession. And Princess Leia as well.
Excellent. I shall oversee her interrogation personally.
and an original John Williams score performed by the London Symphony Orchestra make Rebel Assault an unforgettable deep space epic gamers will return to again and again as they face the Imperial forces and save the universe from the ruthless Emperor.
Rebel Assault would make its ship date and hit store shelves on November 25th, 1993 for DOS and Macintosh, with Sega CD and 3DO versions releasing in 1994. And the sales for the game were not only good, they were great. Shipping over 100,000 units at launch, and eventually reaching over 1 million total units sold, Rebel Assault became one of the best-selling video games of all time, and alongside Myst and former episode subject The Seventh Guest, which also released in 1993, the game helped cement the CD-ROM as the video game format of choice. The release wasn't all good, though. With new technologies come new problems, with the tech desk being pushed past its limits at Lucasarts, and the company having to issue patches and boot disk installers with subsequent versions of the game. Nonetheless, Rebel Assault stands out as a monumental achievement in both game making and Star Wars storytelling.
Rebel Assault is the most anxiously awaited game for the Sega CD in living memory. It's been almost 20 years since we first saw the Death Star go poof, but the thought of flying that historic battle still makes us drool. Now that the game is almost here, a sneak peek showed me that Genesis CD owners are in for a game that was worth the wait. Although it's not an amazing game, Rebel Assault lets us play out those fantasies we've been having since the first time we saw Star Wars, and for that, it's worth the price of admission.
It's been hard for me to pin down exactly how much George Lucas had his hands in the story elements of this game, with articles ranging from minimal to overseeing storyboards to approving the cutscene decisions. I'm inclined to think he wanted to be in the loop, but I think ultimately he probably left the team to their own devices. One thing we do know for sure is that George was happy with the game, saying in a letter to Vince Lee and team, "Dear Vince and the Rebel Assault crew, I'm extremely excited and proud of the great work you've done on Rebel Assault, and the great sales success and acclaim that it has received. By taking Star Wars into the CD-ROM platform, you've extended my original Star Wars ideas into a new and different form of entertainment. You seem to have set the standard for what this new medium can accomplish for interactive entertainment. It's great that we can also set the standard for what sales can be as well. It's a job well done. Congratulations. Sincerely, George Lucas." No matter how George was involved, Lucasfilm played an important role in the creation of this game, and LucasArts took a leap of faith putting their trust in Vince Lee to bring the world of Star Wars to the CD-ROM. But now it's time to double down on Vince Lee and find out what the real capabilities of Star Wars on CD-ROM are. It's time for Rebel Assault 2. With the financial and technological success of Rebel Assault, it wouldn't be long before the sequel would go into production. About 5 months to be exact. So Vince Lee starts work on Rebel Assault 2 in May of 1994. But as is the case with most sequels, some decisions had to be made. How do you improve upon a game as heralded as Rebel Assault? The first game highlighted the new CD-ROM format, with fully rendered cutscenes and video footage pulled right from the films. So where does LucasArts go from there? How do you top that? Well, to start, Vince creates a new game engine, the Insane Engine, which stands for Interactive Streaming Animation Engine. It does a lot of things to the programming, but all we need to know is now the video quality and the sound can blow the quality of the first game out of the water.
George Lucas's entertainment company is an amazing think tank where artists and computer programmers gather together to create the latest in technology. A game like Rebel Assault 2 is an action-adventure based on George Lucas's Star Wars. It took 15 people a year and a half to go from idea to completion. Walk this way. This is Vince Lee. He's the project leader for Rebel Assault 2. The entire game is the brainchild of Vince. If the game fails, Vince is fired.
Have it like out buried in the sand.
I like to make sketches, and they're really what we call thumbnails because they're simple storyboards that outline exactly what the story's going to be, what the scenes are going to be. These are, for instance, some of the storyboards that I drew for Rebel Assault 2.
After Vince's version, other artists and computer programmers move it to the screen.
Do you have any codes that are like top secret?
Well, there's certainly things that I'm very proud of that I wouldn't want to get out.
Oh, come on, just tell us one.
Oh, basically, in Rebel 2, one of the things I think will really give it an edge is the ability for us to play back high-quality video off of a CD.
The team decides to keep the same basic structure of the game, an on-rails flight shooter. The two big differences would be how much more smoothly the game would play and the live-action video. The first game walked us loosely through the events of the first film. The sequel will follow the events of the first game, except this time we'll see Rookie One in a brand new original story, helping the Rebel Alliance locate and hopefully capture the brand new TIE Phantom. So to make Rebel Assault 2 happen, we'd be getting the first new live-action Star Wars since the Ewok Adventure films. Now, filming basically a brand new Star Wars film is no small task, because it's Star Wars, so a certain level of quality is expected, and, because it's Star Wars, the film that changed movies forever. The script gets written over the course of about 6 months, and goes through the approval process with the Lucasfilm Star Wars team. A few rounds of back and forth, then storyboards can be created, and work could get started on filming the cutscenes for the game. Now, according to Rogue leaders, George Lucas, who had at least some level of oversight to the first game, was very trusting of the LucasArts team to handle his world with care for their new game. I think the trust came down to the fact that Rebel Assault had been so commercially successful, but if I had to guess, probably more important to George, Hal Barwood would be in charge of the filming. I've talked about Hal Barwood on the podcast before. He was the co-designer for Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, so George Lucas knew he could craft an Indiana Jones story, so why not Star Wars? Oh, and Hal also worked with Lucas on THX 1138 in the animation department, and wrote the screenplay for Steven Spielberg's Sugarland Express, and ghostwrote Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So with a background like that, Hal should have no problem directing the cutscenes for Rebel Assault 2. Tamlin Barra is back as the voice director, but this time the game needs live-action actors as well as voice actors, so she is also responsible for casting 12 acting roles for the screen as well. Hal Barwood would direct the casting calls for Rookie 1 and Rue Marlene, with Vince Lee overseeing the casting of the game's lead actors, with Jameson Jones nabbing the role of Rookie 1 and Julie Eccles playing Rue Marlene. Using props, cockpits, and costumes from the original films, the filming is done on a blue screen soundstage. Then, the backgrounds and environments are digitally composited into the game. Some articles claim that this laid the groundwork for how George Lucas would decide to make the prequels. I don't know that I necessarily buy into that specifically, but looking at this footage in 1995, it was pretty impressive. And filming actors, then creating a world around them, was fast and less expensive than building sets, so I'm sure this got his wheels spinning at least a little bit. Even now, 30 years later, the live-action footage is what gets all the attention when you bring up Rebel Assault 2. But that only told half the story. For the rest, Vince Lee would need art, and lots of it. Rich Green, who had come in to do some 3D art for Rebel Assault, is assigned as lead artist for Rebel Assault 2. And even though the game was going to function more or less the same way as the first installment, the higher resolution called for more detailed artwork and more of it. Working off of a completed script, the first thing Green does is create his own storyboards for the animation team. The team of 12 artists begin working hard at creating assets for the game, environments, animations, and ships, including the brand new TIE Phantom, whose look was modeled after seeing some Ralph McQuarrie artwork of an Imperial shuttle in a Star Wars art book. All told, there would be about 4 times the amount of artwork required for the sequel.
So essentially what you've done here, gentlemen, is to create an entire digital background. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what we've done. It saves a lot of time from having to build all these sets, saves a lot of money. We have a lot more control over what happens, and then we can get more far out with the environments. If we want to fix something, or if the lighting's not right or anything, we can change it all, right here, and not have to go back and rebuild anything and reshoot anything.
So, they were able to add light to these characters, add a shadow here, add a little thing here, add a little thing here, and all on 96 megabytes of RAM, using some specially created software and some...
With the main storytelling components taken care of, digital compositing can blend the two pieces together. The 15 levels get designed and music gets compressed, but the digital John Williams score takes advantage of the Insane engine and is much fuller sounding than it was the first time around. Playtesting happens, and then on November 24th of 1995, one day ahead of 2 years after the original, Rebel Assault 2: The Hidden Empire releases to the world on DOS, and a year later on PlayStation. Spilling over onto 2 discs, this new installment of Rebel Assault wasn't received quite as warmly this time around, but gamers were glad to have another adventure with Rookie 1, selling over 500,000 copies on the PC. The PlayStation version would have higher resolution graphics and audio, so while the PlayStation port is easier than the PC version, it's also the best looking and sounding version of the game.
And Rebel Assault is followed up with Rebel Assault 2: The Hidden Empire.
They were very different games. One was an action arcade game, one was a flight simulator game. But they did 2 things for us.
I'm going down!
They put us on the map with PC games that were innovative, things we'd never done before. And then they established Star Wars in the gaming space that had never been established before. We began to move in different directions by offering different games in different genres for the PC.
By the time Rebel Assault 2 releases on PlayStation, FMV games had largely fallen out of fashion. so that would put an end to these stories told by Vince Lee and the rest of the Rebel Assault team. Admittedly, playing these games today can be a little clunky, but they were monumental in a lot of ways. Not only was this the first standalone CD-ROM game for LucasArts, it was one of the titles that made that format the industry standard for the next 2 decades. It was also the first live-action Star Wars in 10 years, and for those of us who were too young to have gotten to see Return of the Jedi in theaters, Rebel Assault 2 was a Star Wars movie we could call our own. Vince Lee's insane engine propelled LucasArts video games forward through to the end of the 90s, and we may not have gotten some of the gaming experiences we did without the building blocks first designed for Rebel Assault. I've loved these games for as long as I can remember loving video games. I got them as part of the LucasArts Archive Volume 2, which released in 1996. I remember struggling my way through the first game, and spending hours trying to make those perfect fights in Rebel Assault 2. I think the cutscenes are amazing, and now that live-action Star Wars is back in our lives in a big way, I'm always hopeful to get a Rebel Assault Easter egg. It's really hard to say how my love of Star Wars was shaped by Rebel Assault, but it undoubtedly was. But now I want to hear, what do you have to say about these games? Did you take to the skies as Rookie 1? Or watch through the cutscenes of Rebel Assault 2? Or is this the first time hearing about these games? And more importantly, did you mix up a jet juice to have along the way? Let me know all that down below, or on social media at Drink the Video Games on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. If you'd like to support Drink the Video Games or Drink the Movies, our Patreon is the best way to do that. You'll get bonus episodes, cocktail chats, hangouts, and gaming streams. www.patreon.com/drinkthemovies. Make sure you check out the YouTube channel for the video version of the podcast, as well as upcoming playthrough of Rebel Assault 2, plus all of the other games I've covered on the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Cheers. Rookie 1 out.